Hello, everyone. This is Teacher Sydney, and today we are going to talk about the elements of a short story. This is for quarter 4, week 1. What are we to do in this discussion? We have first, identify the elements of a short story, and second, make a short story with its complete elements. Are you ready? Before we begin discussing the 5 elements of a short story, let us first define what a short story is. A short story is a series of events with a central character, a conflict, a solution, and a setting. So what are the elements? And that will be the first thing that we are going to talk about today. There are 5 elements, and the first element is the character. The character or characters refer to the individuals that the story is about or the story is talking about. The writer usually gives a detailed description or descriptions of a character's physical attributes or how they act or look like and personality traits. Maybe they are kind or evil. This process is called characterization. Under character, it's good to remember that there is such a term called main character. The main character determines the way the plot will develop or how the story is going to happen, and is usually who will solve the problem the story centers upon. In the story Cinderella, we have 2 stepsisters who are along with Cinderella. Our main character is obviously Cinderella because she is going to be the one to face the problem and solve the problem. Try to solve the problem at least for herself. The second element of a short story is what we call the setting. This refers to the location and time of the events or the action. The setting helps the reader picture or see the scene. For example, the story may have happened in the house, late afternoon. In the story Cinderella, the story happens in a faraway kingdom once upon a time, or maybe in the old time. The third element of a short story is what we call the plot. The plot refers to the very clear beginning, middle, and end of the story. Plots begin with the exposition, where the characters and the setting are introduced. The plot also refers to the events that identify the start and the finish or the end of the story. Let us talk about the events that happen or the plot of the story Cinderella. The story begins with Cinderella having to live with her stepmother and stepsisters. All the households of the kingdom are invited to join the ball where the ladies are going to meet the prince. Cinderella wanted to go, but she wasn't allowed to. Nevertheless, she prepared a ball gown by herself and with her friends so that she can go to the palace. When her stepsisters learned about it, they destroyed the ball gown, making it look like this. Fortunately, the fairy godmother was really very good at fixing things using magic. So, she transformed the ball gown of Cinderella to make it look magnificent and really very beautiful like this one. However, they had to strike a deal, and Cinderella had to follow strict instructions that before or at midnight, she has to leave the palace because everything that magic has created for her, all of these things like the coach and the ball gown, are going to go back to their original faces. Cinderella went to the palace, and for the entire night, she danced with the prince. But suddenly she heard the clock strike 12. So she had to run away from the palace, leaving one of her shoes behind. The prince was very sad about this. So the next day, he asked his men to look for the owner of the glass shoe. The stepmother and the stepsisters were so eager to have the shoe and claim ownership. Unfortunately, the shoe did not fit any of the feet in this household. But one of the prince's men know that there is one more lady in the house and that is Cinderella. So he asked Cinderella to wear the glass shoe, and finally, he found the owner of the glass shoe that was left in the palace at the night of the ball. Finally, Cinderella and the prince, along with Cinderella's friends, lived in the palace after Cinderella married the prince. Those are the events or the important events that happened in the story Cinderella. The fourth short story elements is what we call the conflict, or otherwise known as the problem. This is the center of the plot, for without conflict, the story will not be interesting. The conflict or problem is something that has to be solved in the story. This is also what the main character struggles to solve. In the short story, or in the fairy tale Cinderella, Cinderella struggles against the maltreatment of her stepmother and stepsisters, causing her to almost lose the chance to find her true love, who happens to be the prince. The last element of a short story is what we call the resolution or the solution. This is the way the conflict or the action is resolved. It is important that the resolution fit the rest of the story in tone and creativity and solve all parts of the conflict, meaning to say, the solution has to be realistic and related to the problem. We know that the problem of Cinderella is that she might not be able to meet and prove that she is really the woman the prince danced in the ball. Fortunately, the glass shoe was tailor-made to fit her own feet. Consequently, the story's problem was solved. Those are the 5 elements of the short story: character, setting, plot, conflict, and solution. Let us now test your memory. Let's answer this. Number 1. A setting is the blank in the story. A. Where and when. B. Major events. C. Who. You are correct. The correct answer is letter A, the where and the when in the story. Number 2. The characters are blank or in a story. A. Who. B. What. C. When and where. You are right. The correct answer is letter A. The characters are who are in a story. Number 3. The plot are the blank in a story. A. Major events. B. Who. C. When and where. Correct. The correct answer is letter A. Major events. 4. Every plot has a problem and a blank. A. Problem. B. Solution. C. Who. Perfect. The correct answer is letter B. Solution. 5. Characters, setting, plot, conflict, and resolution are the blank. A. Elements of the story. B. Kinds of story. C. Types of story. Great! You got the answer right. The correct answer is letter A. Elements of the story. Before we end, of course, we have to write our own story. So here is a story I wrote a while ago. Once, there was a bee named Bella who was asked by the queen to gather nectar. She was very scared to go outside the hive, but it is her time to gather nectar already. So, she asked her friend to guide her in looking for a flower to gather nectar from. Within that day, Bella and her friend Bruno found a huge flower and sucked the nectar in. When they returned to the hive, the queen was very happy with the nectar that Bella got. From that day forward, Bella and Bruno were known as the best nectar gatherers of the hive. We know that the characters in the story are Bella and Bruno, but the main character is Bella. The conflict in the story is that she was really very scared to go outside the hive. Fortunately, again, Bella has a friend who is willing to guide her in looking for a flower to gather nectar from. This is the solution of the problem. Finally, the story ended with Bella and Bruno being known as the best nectar gatherers of the Heights. Are you now ready to make your own story? It is now your time to answer the activities your teacher leaves you in your classroom or in your activity. But before that, tell me about your favorite story. Type your answer in the comment section below and I will try my best to read all your story suggestions. That is all for today. Thank you for listening and I hope you learned something for today. Goodbye and thank you.